Real camping horror stories that actually happened. It begins with a fire. A fire that never wanted to stay lit. The campers said it was the damp wood, but deep down they all knew something was wrong. The forest was too still, too quiet, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Ethan, a college sophomore, had convinced his 3 friends to spend a weekend in Black Hollow Woods, a stretch of forest whispered about in local bars but never marked on tourist maps. The stories were always the same: people went camping and came back different. Or they didn't come back at all. At first, it felt like any other camping trip. They laughed, told stories, roasted marshmallows. But then, when the night thickened into something darker, the laughter faded. The air grew heavier, pressing against their lungs like invisible hands. Ethan was the first to notice the sound. A low hum. Not like wind, not like any animal. It came from deep in the forest, vibrating through the ground. His friends brushed it off as nerves, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the forest wasn't just alive, it was listening. When the fire sputtered out again, they heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, circling the campsite. Flashlights swung into the trees, but nothing reflected back. No eyes, no movement. Just silence. Until one of them whispered, "Did you see that?" A shadow had darted between the trees. Taller than a man. Too thin, too fast. They decided to huddle in the tent, trying to laugh it off, but the fabric walls did nothing to block out the sounds. Breathing. Right outside. Long, heavy exhales that made the nylon shiver. Someone, or something, was standing inches away watching. Then came the smell. Rot. Like soil mixed with decay. One of the girls gagged as the stench seeped through the zipper, stronger with every breath. Ethan clutched the flashlight, his hand trembling. When he finally zipped open the flap, the beam hit nothing but trees. Empty. But the footprints were there. Not boots. Not shoes. Bare, human-like feet, pressed deep into the soil, circling the tent again and again. Only they weren't human at all. The toes were too long, stretching unnaturally claw-like. Sleep never came. Every time their eyes closed, the noises began again. The hum, the breathing, the snapping of branches just out of reach. When dawn broke, they thought they were safe. They weren't. The forest looked different. Their campsite wasn't where they'd left it. The trees were wrong, bent in impossible ways, curving toward the tent like they had grown overnight. A symbol had been carved into the bark of the nearest tree. A circle with jagged lines running through it. Fresh. Still dripping with sap. No one had the courage to say it out loud, but they all thought the same thing. Something had marked them. That night, exhaustion dragged them into uneasy sleep. Then came the scream. It wasn't from any of them, it came from deep inside the forest, a scream so sharp it felt like glass slicing through their ears. They froze, waiting for it to fade, but instead, it came closer. Snapping branches. Heavy footsteps. The scream turning into a wail that wrapped around them from every side. When Ethan pointed his light at the trees, he saw them. Not one pair, but dozens, glowing faintly, peering from the darkness. Watching. Waiting. One of his friends whispered, "We need to run." But before they could move, something moved for them. A hand, long, skeletal, with fingers that bent the wrong way, pushed against the side of the tent, pressing the fabric inward until it nearly tore. The stench of rot filled their lungs. The hum grew louder, vibrating through their bones now. It wasn't outside anymore. It was inside their heads. A voice without words, whispering, pulling at their sanity. Ethan grabbed a knife, slashing the tent open, and they bolted into the night. But the forest wasn't the same. The path they had walked hours before was gone, replaced with endless trees that all leaned inward, forming a cage. Something was behind them. Following. Not running, not rushing. Just walking. Slowly. Patiently. As if it knew they couldn't escape. When they stumbled into a clearing, relief hit for just a second. Until they saw what stood in the center. A fire pit. Still warm. Ashes smoldering. Surrounding it were broken tents, shredded sleeping bags, and belongings scattered across the ground. A phone. A boot. A torn journal, pages smeared with dirt and blood. The last entry was barely legible, scratched in frantic handwriting. "It doesn't let you leave. It makes you part of the forest. If you hear the hum, it's already too late." And then came the whisper. Not from the forest. Not from behind them. From right next to Ethan's ear. "You feel it, don't you?" The clearing was deathly still, as if the forest itself was waiting. Ethan's group huddled together, their eyes darting to the remnants of other campers. Shredded tents, half-burned clothes, the journal that warned them it was already too late. The hum returned. Low, pulsing, seeping through the soil beneath their feet. It was stronger now, vibrating in their teeth, filling their heads until thought itself became impossible. One of them dropped to their knees, clutching her ears, screaming that the forest was inside her. The trees leaned closer, groaning as their trunks twisted, their branches snapping into shapes that resembled fingers. Shadows flickered between them, moving faster than the eye could follow. Ethan's flashlight stuttered, the beam slicing through blackness that seemed to swallow the light whole. Then came the first real glimpse. A figure stepped from the tree-line. Tall, impossibly thin, its limbs crooked like broken branches. Its face, or what should have been a face, was nothing but pale skin stretched tight, featureless except for a mouth carved too wide, hanging open as the hum poured from it. The others backed away, but Ethan stood frozen. He realized with dawning horror that the sound wasn't just around them, it was speaking. Not in words, but in thoughts that slithered through their minds like smoke. You came here. You lit the fire. Now you belong. The figure moved closer, its steps cracking the earth as if the ground recoiled from it. The smell of decay thickened, choking their lungs. One of the group broke and ran into the trees. There was no scream, no sound, only silence, as if the forest had swallowed her whole. The thing's head snapped toward the clearing again. Its eyeless face tilted. Then slowly a hand rose. Fingers stretched, impossibly long, curling like roots. The journal in Ethan's hand burst into flame without warning, the fire searing his skin until he dropped it, the last words burning away into ash. It doesn't let you leave. The hum escalated, vibrating the clearing until the trees rattled and dirt lifted from the ground. Ethan's friend collapsed, blood dripping from his ears. The creature's mouth split wider and a second voice joined the hum, his friend's own voice, chanting in perfect unison. Desperation drove Ethan to drag the others, forcing them toward the edge of the clearing. But no matter how far they ran, the trees closed in again, reshaping, bending into an endless labyrinth. Their campsite appeared once more ahead of them, the tent shredded, their belongings scattered, as if they had never moved. The forest wasn't a place. It was a trap. A final surge of terror gripped Ethan when he saw the tent. A figure was inside, crouched, waiting. It was them. Their own shapes, duplicates, sitting motionless with heads tilted unnaturally, waiting like puppets for strings to pull. The real group screamed, stumbling back, but it didn't matter. The doubles stood slowly, faces blank, movements jagged. The entity didn't hunt them, it replaced them. Ethan's vision blurred as the hum filled his skull. He fell to his knees, clutching his head, his last sight the forest collapsing inward as if to consume them all. And then, silence. The story should have ended there. But it didn't. Because if you're still listening, you've heard the hum too. You felt it in your bones, the pressure in your chest, the cold that creeps across your skin even now. That's how it spreads, by being told, by being heard. You've let it in. Check the shadows of your room tonight. Watch the corners where the light doesn't reach. Listen closely to the silence. If you hear the hum, it's already too late. You feel it, don't you? The cold crawling your spine, the whisper behind you, the breath on your neck. You're not alone anymore. And now, neither am I. If you dare to face what comes next, subscribe. You'll need it.